So I hope it turned out right.
It's great.
And you can take off anything that, it doesn't sound right. Pop always knew when it was time to leave. And he told them that. He said, I'll know when God is finished with my work here. And you don't have to worry about it. He said, I'll be gone. And so that's the way he was feeling about the church we were pastoring. And he said we loved the people and they loved us. But it was time to move. And so I don't really remember how the district superintendent found out about it, because we were going to go back to the New York district. And when he found out about it, he came to us and he said, would you do me a favor? Would you stop at Milton on the way down or on the way back? He said, and have a service there with the people. Pop answered and said, yes, we'll do that. So that's what we did. We went to New York first, and it was a real lovely setup there. They had a vote, and we got a unanimous call to come and be their pastor. So Pop told them, said, well, we always pray about where we go, and so we'll let you know as soon as, we know ourselves. Then we went on, and we were to stop at Milton. It was on a Wednesday night, 53 years ago. I'll never forget it. We sang, and the song we sang was, do you have any rivers to cross? Then Pop spoke, and they said, well, would you wait around a little bit before you leave to go home? And Pop said, yes, I think we can. They came out, all of them were smiling. They said, we voted unanimously for you to come to Milton. And we thought, isn't this strange? 2 votes in 2 days, and they're both unanimous. So Pop told them, we're going to pray about it, and we'll let you know. And so on the way home, we rode for miles and never said a word. Both of us were praying, and because we just didn't know what to do. Finally, he turned to me and he said, what do you think about Milton? I said, Pop, it's not what I think about Milton. It's what you think about Milton. And I said, I'll go anywhere you go. You know that. And he said, yes. He said, but I feel like God is calling me to Milton. And I said, oh, in my heart, I thought, well, I believe he's calling us too. I really did, even though the salary and everything else didn't look so good. and so on. And so that's how we ended up at Milton. It was located down on Front Street, right next to the river. I would say it was a different church than we'd ever seen, because they had about 60 in Sunday school. And when Pop looked down at the congregation for the main service, they had about 30. We had never seen that before. Usually people came for the main service and didn't come to Sunday school. He said, we're going to stop this. He said, they need to be in church and hear the message, the Word of God, when it's preached. And he did. He started working on it, and pretty soon he came up to 60. We had gone through a lot of things there at that church. Like we had 2 floods that flooded us out, and it was quite a trials. And I'm not telling you it has been an easy road, because it hasn't. But you know what? We knew that God was with us, and God had called us, even though we were advised to leave and so on and take a better church. So then Pop and one other member from the church went out looking one day for a place that they could build a church. And when they got here, this was all empty space, and the lady that owned the house lived in the big house down here, and her name was Mrs. Stom. And they said to her, we were just wondering if you'd like to sell this property up here so we could build a church. And she started to cry. And she said, you know what? My husband has gone. But before he left, he was looking out the window, and he said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a church up on that property? And she said, yes, I'll gladly sell it to you. That was my husband. He went to a convention in Ohio, and he came back, so enthused. Now, I taught public school, and I think Arlie was teaching public school at the time. Neither one of us really got excited about the idea, and it was not that we didn't want a Christian school, that we thought that was a great idea, but we just didn't feel that Pop was really able to start something so big. And he said, well, I'll start with kindergarten. I'll start with anything. He said, I think we ought to start something here. And he kept pushing it till Arlie caught fire. And now Arlie, of course, is an organizer. And he was able to go ahead with it. And a friend of his came to visit us one Sunday, and she said that, I don't see any reason why you can't have a Christian school here. And she explained to him how to go about it and everything, because she was in education as well. And so Arlie took over and started the school then. I thought a lot about that. He seemed to have like a spiritual inclination. When he was about 3 years old, the Hurricane Hazel hit. We were pastoring on the Eastern Shore at that time, and Hurricane Hazel hit down there, lifted boats right up off from the water right over top of each other. It did so much devastation. Well, when it first started, Pop said, we have a couple that lives about 2 blocks away from us, and they're an older couple, and they have nobody. And said, I think I better go down and see what's happening to them and if they need anything. But I was home with Arlie, and I've always been afraid of storms. I don't know, bad storms. I'm not afraid of a little rain, but when it starts the lightning and everything starts cracking, and the house we lived in there in Maryland was an old house, and the windows were cracking and everything, and I was just so fearful. I sat in the rocking chair rocking, and as I was rocking, I didn't want to be crying, but I didn't cry out loud, but tears kept rolling down my cheeks. And Arlie was playing on the floor. He was 3 years old, and he was playing with his toys, and he looked up and he saw me crying. And he hopped up and he put his hand on mine on the chair, and he said, Mom, don't cry. He said, God's going to take care of us. What a rebuke that was to me. Sometimes I have a tendency to forget that God's in my boat. But after he did that, I just kept an eye on him because I thought he's special. We had been praying a lot for him. And I know that with me, one night I thought, I just can't let the devil have Arlie. I cannot. And I said, Lord, don't let him have him. I said, you just got to put a hedge around him. And a little time passed, and the church that we had pastored asked us to come back. And they had a big rally, and we were praying that Arlie would get saved that day. But it wasn't long, and after that I got a telephone call at night, and he said, Mom, I've given my heart to the Lord. I could hardly talk, for crying, of course, and saying how thankful I was that he had made this surrender. Well, I'll tell you the truth. If you know him, he's got a lot of funny memories. The one that I like when he was about 4 or 5 years old, I was playing the piano in church for Sunday morning services. And so he had to stay in church with me, and he sat there by himself. Well, this lady came and she said, would you mind if Arlie sat with me on Sunday mornings so he's not all by himself? She dearly loved him. I said, no, I would be happy to have you do that. And so she took him then to where she was sitting. One Sunday after church, she met me and she said, I got something to tell you. She said, you got to make a promise first I said, what's the promise? She said, that you're not going to tell Arlie about this. And I said, oh, I promise, I won't tell him. But she said, he came in church this morning and sat down by her, and he reached over and touched her and said, you know, Mrs. Price, you've got on a beautiful dress. And she said, well, thank you, Arlie. That is so kind of you to say that. And he said, and you know what? Your shoes and your pocketbook, they match. He said, that's really nice. Now, mind you, he's only 4 or 5 years old. He said, but I got something to tell you. He said, your hair is a mess. He said, you ought to see it. And she said, I almost bursted out laughing. She said, because he was telling the truth. My hair was a mess. She said, I said, well, we didn't get, my beautician was sick this week and couldn't fix my hair. So, Arlie, I had to do it myself. And he went, oh, my. Well, I think it's a very great privilege to have my son as my pastor. He tells us something new every week. That I've been in church for all these years, and I know the Bible pretty well, and I've heard a lot of pastors and a lot of evangelists, but Arlie seems to find something in the Word every week that is really good, and so on. And only I'll have to admit, there have been times when he scared me with his faith. I didn't have the faith that he had. When he stopped passing those offering plates, I thought, oh dear, that I don't think that's a good move. And I said, because there are going to be people that's not going to give it all. And he said, Mom, God's going to take care of it. Don't worry about it. Don't let this worry you. And so I had to give in. But then I said he often bought thousands of dollars worth of stuff and sent it to people and so on. And I thought, where does he think all this is coming from? But it always came in. But you know, the reason, Arlie was a man who really fasted and prayed a lot. And I think that God honored all that by, giving him the desires of his heart. Yes, I did. I can't remember any special times right now, but I had to do it because I said, now, Arlie, this is what the Word says. And I said, I don't know how you feel about it, but I go by what the Word says. And so he said, yeah, and he said I was right. I don't think I always liked it, but it didn't matter. I'm going to tell you anyway. If which I would do the same thing with Brandon. Never take your eyes off of the one that's leading you in the first place. Keep your focus on God. When I heard that speech he made on what he would be doing as pastor, said he would be preaching the Word. And that's what's so important for all of us to listen to. And then I was going to remind him about the time that we were in Guatemala. He was just a couple doors down from me. And Aiden stopped by my room, and I was doing something to a nail, and I was trying to clip it off, and I couldn't find my clippers. And I said, Aiden, would you do me a favor? Would you mind going over into Brandon's room and asking him if I could borrow his clippers? Well, sometimes Aiden doesn't always think the way I think, and evidently that's what happened, because by the time he came home, he was carrying a pair of bedroom slippers. And I said, Aiden, what are you doing with bedroom slippers? Well, he said, Brandon said that he only had one pair, but if Mom Davis wanted those slippers, she was welcome to have them. And I said, what? I laughed. I said, Aiden, I didn't ask for his slippers. I said, clippers. I said, but I was really impressed that he had such a caring heart and was thoughtful enough to send me on his only pair of slippers, which you needed in your room in Guatemala. And that has impressed me about his attitude and so on. And I just think he's going to do a great job. And he couldn't have married a sweeter girl. And so I think she'll do an excellent job as a pastor's wife too, and love everybody. And and that's important. People need to know that they're loved, and that they're wanted. And so I think both of them will do an excellent job. And just remember, the I Am is our great and mighty God. One of the things that I wanted to tell him was to write a book, to keep busy. He told us it didn't make any difference whether we were retired or how old we were or whatever, that we were to keep busy, that God has something for all of us to do no matter our age. And that's true. Yeah, that's what I would tell him. And I also like to say thank you to both he and Sharon for all the hard work and the long hours that people really don't know, the hours that somebody puts.
I was asked to think about an occasion when I felt really proud of Arlie. This was a hard decision to make, since there had been so many times. Was it at his high school graduation, or even his graduation from college, when he tried to turn the tassel on his cap and it fell off right into his hand? Perhaps when he started to teach in his own classroom? Or was it when he started the barber school while teaching and received his license to have his own shop? Or was it when I received a telephone call that he had given his life to Christ? Could it have been when he felt called to the ministry, or moved back to Milton to begin to assist his dad in the church? Maybe it was when he was named Pastor of the Year. At that time, he had moved the church from around 200 to 1,500. Was it when he organized Meadowbrook Christian School and later received accreditation for the school? Or was it when his interest turned to missions, both home and abroad, and he visited the foreign countries as well? I could name more, but my time is limited. Of all the things I mentioned, I believe I would choose the night he gave his life to Christ. But whichever it was, I've always been proud to be the mother of Arlie Davis.